the homeless man who returned my wallet. It was a cold, gray Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago. I was late for a meeting, juggling a hot coffee, my phone, and a stack of client papers when I hailed a cab in a rush. The city buzzed with its usual chaos, horns blaring, footsteps pounding against the concrete, and the sharp chill of winter slicing through coats and scarves. Somewhere between the office lobby and the 10th floor, I lost my wallet. I didn't realize until lunchtime. My heart dropped. My driver's license, credit cards, a few $100s in cash, and, worst of all, a small photo of my daughter tucked into one of the card sleeves. That picture was the only copy I had left after my divorce. It was taken on a summer afternoon at the beach, her blonde hair tangled in sea wind, grinning at the camera with a popsicle in her hand. I carried it everywhere. I retraced my steps, called the cab company, scoured the sidewalks. Nothing. By nightfall, frustration had turned into defeat. I canceled my cards, reported the loss, and went home with an ache in my chest that had nothing to do with the money. The next morning, just as I was stepping into the office, our building's front desk receptionist flagged me down. "There's a man asking for you. Says he found your wallet." I blinked. "What man?" She pointed toward the glass doors. I looked. A man stood outside, clutching something in both hands. His clothes were ragged, his beard thick and tangled, and he wore no gloves despite the biting wind. A large duffel bag sat beside him, fraying at the seams. I walked out hesitantly. "Are you Mark Evans?" he asked, voice raspy but kind. "Yeah." He held out my wallet, every card still in place. Even the photo. "I found it under the bench near Grant Park. I saw your ID. Thought maybe you'd want it back." My fingers shook as I took it. "Everything's here. Even the cash." He gave a small shrug. "Wasn't mine." I stood speechless for a moment, staring at him. His hands were red from the cold. His shoes had holes in them. Yet here he was, a man with seemingly nothing, returning something I had already written off as gone. "What's your name?" I asked. "James," he replied. "James Holloway." I pulled out a couple of $100 bills. "Please, take this. It's the least I can do." He shook his head. "No, sir. I didn't come for that." "Then why did you come all this way?" He smiled softly. "I was hoping maybe you'd hear me out. Maybe help me find a job. I'm trying to get off the streets. Just need someone to give me a chance." I took a long breath. I was a marketing executive, I didn't exactly have jobs lying around. But something about James struck me. There was a quiet dignity in the way he stood, a flicker of hope in eyes that had seen too much darkness. I told him to come back the next day, freshly showered if he could, and I'd see what I could do. He came back, cleaned up, hair trimmed, eyes clearer. I didn't have a role at my company, but I made some calls. A friend at a community center offered to interview him for a janitorial position. James showed up early, wore a borrowed suit, and nailed it. Within a week, he had a job. Within a month, he had a small studio apartment. 6 months later, he was volunteering on weekends to help others on the street find work. One day, I asked him why he didn't just take the money from the wallet. He looked at me and said, "Because I was tired of being invisible. I wanted to matter. And doing the right thing felt like a place to start." That one act of honesty changed both our lives. It reminded me that character isn't measured by what's in your pockets, but by what's in your heart. That hope can live in the unlikeliest of places, under a park bench, in the hands of a man who's lost everything except his integrity. James didn't just return my wallet. He gave me back my faith in people. And sometimes, that's worth more than anything money can buy. Months passed, and James and I kept in touch. What started as a chance encounter turned into an unlikely friendship. Every Friday, we'd grab coffee before work. We talked about life, his childhood in Ohio, the jobs he had before the recession, the wife he lost to cancer, and the spiral that followed. He spoke about the nights he slept under bridges, the shelters that turned him away, the small acts of kindness that kept him going, a hot cup of soup, a stranger's smile, a dry pair of socks. One morning, I asked him what had kept him alive through it all. He paused and said, "I kept believing there was still a version of me out there that was worth saving." That hit me hard. Because the truth was, I had stopped believing in myself long before I lost that wallet. I was divorced, emotionally distant from my daughter, buried in deadlines, and measuring my worth by salary and title. But James lived with nothing, and yet he carried more grace and gratitude than most people I knew. That day, I went back to my office and stared at the photo of my daughter. I hadn't called her in weeks. That night, I did. "Daddy," she said, half asleep. "Hi, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear your voice. I miss you." She was quiet for a beat. Then she whispered, "I miss you too." That phone call started something. A reconnection. Slowly, piece by piece, I started showing up again, birthday parties, school plays, silly FaceTime calls about her favorite cartoons. I became a dad again, not just a provider. And it all started because a homeless man reminded me what mattered. A year later, I invited James to Thanksgiving dinner. He hesitated at first. Said he didn't want to intrude. But my daughter insisted. She made him a handmade card that said, "Thank you for bringing my daddy back." James cried when he read it. We all did. By the second year, James had been promoted at the community center. He was mentoring young men who had grown up in broken homes, helping them write resumes, prepare for interviews, and believe in second chances. The same ones he once prayed for on cold sidewalks. He started a support group called The Starting Line, a place for those who felt like life had left them behind. I attended a few sessions. It was humbling to sit in a room full of people who had every reason to be bitter, yet chose to be brave instead. James never took credit. He always said, "I just gave back what was given to me." But I knew better. He gave all of us more than we gave him. Today, James owns a small nonprofit that helps the homeless transition into permanent housing and employment. My company became one of its sponsors. Every wallet we give out during orientation now includes a little card with his story printed on it. At the bottom, it says, "One honest act can change the direction of a life, sometimes two."